Hey there, and welcome back to another Miraculous Ladybug Season 6 video. And today we're going to be talking about the latest episode to drop, Yaksi Gozen, which is yet another episode of this show that well and truly delivers. Seriously, Season 6 is on such a hot streak of top-level content. The deeply cynical part of me keeps telling myself that with every episode, this is going to be the one where the penny drops and the questionable writing begins once more, but each episode keeps hitting it out of the park in terms of quality. If they can keep it up until the end of the season with no real failures, this will 100% be their best season in years. Time for us to get into the episode and see what we can find. Here we go. We start off the episode flashing back to the end of Season 5 where Monarch's in the midst of his battle with Ladybug. Specifically, this moment takes place when Marinette's hiding in the kitchen, and I think that Plag has just arrived to give her the ring and turn her into Bug Noir to enter the endgame phase of the battle. Gabe calls to Moi to tell her that she needs to keep the mind-controlled goons looking for Cat Noir, whilst he personally goes to deal with Ladybug and steal her Miraculous. When she tells him that maybe he needs to take a step back and protect himself, he goes full smooth brain and tells her that she needs to shut it and that thankfully pretty soon, he's not going to need her anymore. So he openly tells her that he's planning on betraying her trust. Why is this a smooth brain move, you might ask? I'll tell you why, my friends. Gabe openly admits to her face that he's going to screw her over. Apparently, she still has some control over the goons since he's telling her that he wants her to keep them looking for Cat Noir. He hasn't defeated Ladybug yet, and so he doesn't have one of the big two Miraculouses, and like I said, Cat Noir's not accounted for. Even if Tomoe then got her hands on the Cat Miraculous, why would she ever hand it over to Gabe now? She even knows that Gabe's out of time. Very soon he's going to straight up die, and so she could just lay low and she'd win. Judging by her behavior and wanting him to be careful, she wasn't planning on screwing him over, so he really didn't need to do this at all. If you're going to betray somebody, you got to do it at the last second. You don't do it midway through your fight with only one of the heroes. What a fool! Anyway, Tomoe gets worried and says Kagami's name before calling somebody. Now at first I misinterpreted this scene, and so when she starts giving the orders, I straight up thought she was telling Kagami to go to the mansion. I thought, oh, what a twist! Of course, I then calmed down and I rewatched the scene, and it's clear she's not talking to Kagami. Hell, it wouldn't make sense to begin with since Kagami is straight up in London at this point. So I think the only answer now, especially based on the later events of the episode, is that Lila's the person that she called, as after all, she's the only other relevant character to this storyline. She appears later in the episode, and it's revealed that these two are in cahoots. We know that she infiltrated the Agrest mansion based on the events of Season 5's finale, and then also, it just wouldn't have the same story impact if it was a new character. Also, now that we know that they're working together, and that based on the ending of Valtora di Piedra, we know that Tomoe's working with Natalie, I guess we have to ask this question. How much does Natalie know about all this? How involved is she going to be? There really is a lot to explore in that regard, and I'm thinking that we'll likely learn all of this by the end of the season to set up the drama and tension for Season 7. We then come to the intro theme, and when we return, it's to a cute little scene to juxtapose the pretty serious plot building cold open. Gorilla stopped by the bakery to pick up some goodies, and before he can leave, Marinette stops him and swaps them out for some special treats she herself has made. Throughout this whole early section with the scavenger hunt, I couldn't help but look at the big fella's face. He's so supportive and happy. It's really beautiful to see. It is really sad though that it seems that this security guard is the last positive parental figure in Adrien's entire life, depending on how the whole Natalie storyline ends up going. So yeah, this whole thing's very cute. Marinette set up this scavenger hunt by baking clues into the food, which leads him to a birdhouse. When he offers the dove the seeds, there's a message on its leg telling him that she loves him. Although, is Adrien not allergic to feathers? He was unable to even be near them, let alone touch a bird previously, so how could he possibly let this one close and not react? Is it about the specific type of bird? I know he was allergic to pigeons, but then wasn't there a storyline where he couldn't film an ad properly because of the doves? Did I dream that one up? Did they just forget about this plot point? Bit strange. Also, how the hell do you bake a wooden bird whistle inside one of these things? Or the paper? Or the seeds? I guess you maybe stuff them like you do with cream filling or jam or whatever, but how do you fit inside the giant whistle? Wouldn't it just rip open the entire thing? It would be too small to fit in a hole. She must be really multi-talented. Also, I gotta say that whilst this is very sweet, there were a lot more of those goodies in the first bag from Marinette's mum than the one that Marinette swapped out. Ripped off. He then sends a little voice message to Marinette telling her that he loves her and it's all cute and she's so excited. I'm loving a lot of the wholesome vibes of this season with all the couples having these great moments. Part of me does think though that this means that everything's going to come crashing down by the end of the season. They're really loading up on the shipping content, but also in the background building is this story of it being cleared that Marinette's made the wrong choice and that Adrien's trying to figure out the truth about his dad. I can only imagine the fandom meltdown if they actually did break up, but I kind of think the story is heading in that direction. I could be wrong, but I just feel like they're planting those seeds. Whilst Marinette's all happy with how things are going, poor Adrien's going through a bit of an inferiority complex. He sees how talented Marinette is and how she was able to make him feel so loved and so special, and he wants that for him. He wants to be able to romance her in the way that he thinks she deserves. Man, I get this. This is deeply relatable. I feel that a lot of teenage boys, at least in my experience, are simply inept when it comes to romance. It's not really something you talk about, and you would get clowned on for being lovey-dovey, so I get it, buddy. I get it. I really do. Plag tries to be a bro and make him feel better and tells him that a great cheesemaker doesn't need to be be good at sewing, i.e. you have your own strengths, and you don't need to be perfect at everything. Of course, Adrien, now that he's no longer being abused and oppressed, has found some new personality traits, which seems to amount to him being an absolute himbo. Nothing wrong with that. I realize that some people are going to be annoyed and feel like they're making him seem like a bit of an idiot, but I don't view it that way. I think they're exploring this idea of him being very naive and a sheltered person who was never allowed to explore life before now, and so clearly he's gonna make mistakes and do silly things. It's all part of that growing process. After all, let's not forget what his childhood dream was in Wishmaker. He's always been expected to follow and not to think for himself, but now he's free, so it's gonna be a process to flesh out his own life. We then cut over to Felix and Kagami, who are FaceTiming each other about how Kagami's found a good hiding place for their rings. Obviously, even ahead of time, it was clear this was referring to Marinette. It really didn't take a rocket scientist to figure that one out, to tell you the truth. It's actually a pretty solid choice too. I know some people were a bit iffy ahead of time about the idea of Felix going and giving away his ring, but I think the episode showcases the why of it being necessary really well, and doesn't dumb down his character out of nowhere. Also, whilst they're pretty cute here, at the same time, I feel like they really did somewhat jump the gun with this relationship. It's a very 0 to 100 sort of deal, and it would have been nicer to get a bit more development there if you ask me, before they were fully in a relationship and throwing out I love yous, but I suppose it's better than a 5-season slow burn. It's then back over to Adrien, who's for some reason decided he's going to take Plagg at his word and take up knitting to make something sweet for Marinette. Plagg hits him with one of the most cutting and funny lines of the episode as he asks if he'd mentioned being a mechanic, would he have built her a moped instead?
My grandmother had wheels, she would have been a bike. You know, what, you know, it doesn't make any sense what you said. It's a different recipe. It's got nothing to do with macaroni cheese.
He's completely incredulous as to why he's trying to do this to begin with. And I will give Adrien credit. Trying to knit her something because she likes fashion is cute. But 0 marks for effort. He seemingly gives it one try, decides it's good enough, and goes off to give it to her. I mean, the dude's dad was a fashion icon. Surely Adrien inherited the stake in the business, right? Could he not have some contacts in the industry? Could he not take her to a fashion show or a high-end boutique? If he wants to hand make something, maybe spend more than an afternoon on it. That'd be a good plan. Instead, he presents her with a demented tea cozy. He claims that it's a sweater, and then he's kind of acting hurt when Marinette very obviously is only being nice about it. Like, what was he expecting? If I was given that type of present, I would expect that no effort was put into it. I mean, she knows that he has a lot of talent. Thus, a lack of effort is the only explanation. A lack of care. Then we get some more serious and character-driven stuff. Kagami goes to tell her mum that she's going out, but her mum asks her about her flower arranging class that she's supposed to attend next. Kagami tells her that she's not going to be living her life like that from now on, and her mum calls her out for going to spend time with Felix. This in turn gets Long involved. So this was the first big moment of the episode. The reveal that not only does Tomoe know that Kagami's the wielder of the Dragon Miraculous still, but that Long is comfortable enough with the situation to be out and ready to throw down in defense of Kagami. Tomoe gets angry and rages that Felix could destroy Kagami with a snap of his fingers if he wanted to, and that she can't trust him, and of course, Kagami doesn't like that and the fight begins to spiral. Tomoe decides that if she's not going to listen, she needs to be controlled, and so she grapples to try to get the ring. And geez, this was intense. It then goes up a notch when Kagami transforms and blasts her with Wind Dragon to knock her down, before ranting at her that she's the one who assured Ladybug that she's changed, and thus she prevented her being brought to justice. She tells her that she wishes she was able to hate her, but that after all of this, she still loves her. And this is actually some heavy stuff we're dealing with here. I'm actually curious as to how this one plays out in the endgame. I suspect Tomoe will actually have to go to prison for all of this, right? I think they're going to have a riff on that Gabe ending with the last second change of heart, but instead of dying, it's off to prison. They also kind of tease that with her reminding her mum about Gabe being dead and how Adrien's all alone. Adults in this show never seem to learn, so I don't think she's going to diverge from her path until it's far too late. And it's actually really sad. Kagami uses her powers to fly away, and then it's back over to Adrien, who's just baked a cake at his house for Marinette, once again trying to impress her, and bless his heart, but it's burnt to a crisp. The best part of this is that somehow, he doesn't know that this is all wrong. Maybe since he's so rich he's never encountered overcooked food before. I mean, it isn't just a little bit overly crispy, it is fully black, and only a slight breeze away from crumbling into dust. Plagg puts his foot down on this one, thankfully. He couldn't save him from embarrassing himself with the terrible sweater, but by God, he'll save him here, trying to warn him of giving baked goods to a baker's daughter, whilst also sparing Adrien's feelings by not telling him his cake is garbage. Sadly, Plagg, much like Adrien, is also a bit of a himbo, and so his idea to impress Marinette involves Adrien going out to buy a giant rib steak, only for some random dog to attack them and steal it. I don't even know what the point of this scene was, but it was just hilarious. I don't think anybody could have seen this shit coming when they started the episode. Adrien's quest to make Marinette feel loved is just perfectly written absurdity. We then return to Tomoe's place to get the next big revelation of the episode. She's sitting alone in the same room we left her in, all frustrated. She removes her sunglasses and is rubbing her eyes, and then she opens them, and what do you know? She's not blind. She has robo eyes. Okay, so I guess for one, this serves as some real proper confirmation that the broken peacock miraculous manifests in different ways depending on who's using it. I think I also saw that Asterisk recently confirmed this on Twitter. So for somebody like Emily, I guess it went to the heart to represent love. Tomoe seems obsessed with legacy and perfection, so the eyes make sense because she's always looking forward to her next achievement. Colt, meanwhile, he was jealous, so maybe something like the brain? Something about thinking? I don't know. On top of that, since we know now that she has these robotic eyes, we know she's not blind, and for me, that kind of makes her a little less impressive. I remember earlier on, it seemed like she had these crazy Jedi-style reactions and she could beat up Gabe, but now we know she could simply see him. Kills the mystique a little bit. We then have a flashback to her living in Tokyo, I guess, in the early stages of the first season. So before Kagami's introduced, but after the Origins episode where Gabe's made his debut. Gabe calls her and tells her that Ladybug and Cat Noir are far stronger than he originally anticipated, and he needs help in order to defeat them and get the miraculouses. She shit-talks him a little bit for being so weak as to be pummeled again and again by teenagers, and calls him a disgrace for becoming a supervillain to begin with, but he tells her that together they'll be able to get the miraculouses and get the wish. All he needs is her help to figure out how to repair the peacock. Okay, so now we have a little bit of context as to why she came to Paris. Natalie was always intended to be Mayura, they just needed more time to make it happen. She ends up jumping the gun later on in Season 2's finale, and that's changed the plan. In this conversation, Tomoe also references how this would be a betrayal to the kingdom, which I presume is that secret society. Now, we know in the current day that they're after the miraculous, so why would it be bad for her to help Gabe? Would they view the two of them teaming up to be suspicious or something? I really don't know, but judging by what Natalie's dad says in El Toro de Piedra, I wouldn't be shocked if pretty much every single member of that group is looking to betray the others. It's pretty interesting stuff. He asks her what proof of his loyalty he can offer, and she tells him that she's been disappointed by men her entire life, and so Kagami needs a perfect Prince Charming. I.e., you gotta pimp out your son for us to have a deal. Man, this shit's so gross. At the very least, based on the opening scene of this episode, despite it all, I actually think that Gabe was not going to force Adrien to be with somebody against his will. He was very clearly going to betray Tomoe and was not going to give her the wish or uphold their deal at all. Maybe in the end he could have even approved of Marinette and he was only playing the part he needed to keep up this facade to keep Tomoe on side. I mean, it's still deeply gross and disgusting, but it does start to frame things in a slightly different light. Man, things are getting really intense, aren't they? So many different revelations, but then they raise even more questions that need to be answered. Of course, the big moments just keep coming in this episode as Tomoe's quickly snapped out of her stupor by Lila, who calls her mother and tells her that she sensed her distress and so over she came. Okay, so I've seen some people questioning why she called her mother. I kind of think it's just her being a little shit and being a bit mocking. At this stage, it's obvious that Lila's in a position of power and she's not going to be the same bootlicker we knew before towards the likes of Gabe or Tomoe. Also, this serves as a bit of confirmation from that first scene that she's working with Lila, but it also opens up a lot of questions too. How long has this been going on? How long's she known her? How much does she know about her? All those sorts of things. For God's sake, the quality of the writing really is night and day at this point. I really do think they're building up to a god-tier finale for the season. Lila transforms and we get our first look at her in her chrysalis form. And I'm not going to lie, I was a little bit shocked when I first learned that we were going to see her properly appear this early, but the more I think about it, the more it makes sense. After all, they don't just want to run the same formula they did for Gabe in Season 1, where the big reveal comes at the end of the season. The context is really different now. Season 1 was a mystery, and whilst this season does have mystery and conspiracy elements, I think it also needs to be handled differently. Whilst the Gabe reveal was kind of obvious, at the same time, there was no official confirmation of who he was. Here we already knew that Lila was chrysalis, and so you want to see more of her getting involved beyond just lurking in her lair. Plus, this lets us see this fire design, fleshes out multiple other story threads, and also sort of throws the heat off any potential Lila secret identities by showcasing her in this form instead. It's quite clever writing. She continues to display her dominance by speaking to Tomoe in a mocking tone, kissing her on the cheek and then just lounging around all casually. Lila tells her that life would be so much easier if Kagami simply listened to her, but of course that can't happen anymore. Kagami's not able to be controlled because she has the ring that contains her amok and a miraculous to protect herself. Tomoe can't get it and I doubt she's willing to fight her for it either. However, Lila then presents an alternative. Lila can akumatize Tomoe into Yaksi Gozen and this can in turn allow her to go after Felix. When they manage to get him, Lila's going to be able to take his ring and by doing so, she'll have control of his mind, forcing him to become a spy within the Miraculous and give them information. By doing so, she can continue to slowly unravel the team, and will probably work towards proving her theory from Dark Castle that Marinette is Ladybug. Lila can replace his ring with a forgery so nobody will be the wiser, Lila can then escape, and Tomoe can feign changing her ways and reject the Akuma, and so their goals would have been achieved. I love the use of the alternate animation for their hypothetical scenario too. They've done this sort of thing for many seasons at this point, but I think that Season 6 is just the culmination of it all, where it feels really well integrated with a whole lot of variety. But yeah, this plan's really evil, isn't it? The fact that Tomoe agrees with this really does make me think that there's no hope for a redemption. Although I will say she probably doesn't even deserve one, so who cares? Tomoe asks her how she knows she'll stick to her word this time, which implies that she's already betrayed her previously. I'm thinking that she originally wasn't supposed to keep the butterfly miraculous for herself and was supposed to hand it over or something along those lines. So do we think that Tomoe was perhaps that blue light at the end of season 5 confronting Lila for screwing her over? She does have super AI since Max made it open source, so maybe she sends some sort of battle bot to go and get her? I don't know, just spitballing here. Kagami and Felix reunite at the train station, and Kagami starts to dodge calls from her mum. I gotta say that when Felix is with Kagami, he really does just seem exactly like Adrien, doesn't he? That separation starts to fade a bit. I guess that's probably what he was like originally before he became more stern and cold. Remember, Adrien did have a lot of fond memories of him, so he kind of always been the edgelord we know and love. Then it's over to Marinette's place where she's making a hanger for the terrible shirt that Adrien made her. This is really cute, although I couldn't stop laughing at the fact that Tiki was talking some mad shit about the shirt and just making fun of it. Tiki, what's gotten into you? She then gets an alert from the dragon and the peacock, and they turn up and they tell her that they need to talk. Since Felix is the peacock wielder, he technically has the power over life and death for every single senti creature. At the snap of his fingers, it could be all over for any of them. So good thing he has it, but I will admit, this makes Gabe's decision to give this particular miraculous away completely insane. I mean, Felix could quite literally snap Adrien away forever. And maybe Gabe knows that Felix would never do that, but at the same time, once it's no longer in your control, you have no power over whoever might get it. What if somebody took it away from Felix, for instance? What if somebody stole it? I don't know, I think I just prefer the idea that only you can destroy something that you yourself created with the peacock. It just makes the most sense to me. Otherwise, why would Tomoe want to help him fix it? It's better if it's a potential death sentence because it prevents somebody using it and potentially threatening her daughter. I don't know, I just think this wasn't the best idea for the story. Also, now we know all of this, surely we're going to see Lila get this thing and snap somebody out of existence, right? Obviously, they'll still be able to restore them somehow, but I just feel like this plot point is planting that seed and setting that story beat up. Anyway, they've come to Marinette because they wanted to take the rings so that nobody's able to control them ever or destroy them. They go over all the nitpicky things that I would have tried to yell at them, like use a bank vault or bury them, and they actually have good rebuttals for all of it. You never know where somebody's going to dig or where a robbery is possible. After all, the Louvre quite literally got heisted in real life, losing priceless jewels just the other day. So yeah, you wouldn't want to take that risk at all, would you? Instead, they thought of a new solution. They can take their rings and give them to Marinette, who can hide them in the yo-yo, which will store them in the form of probabilities. There, they can't be harmed or taken by anybody except Ladybug, who obviously is not going to be giving up her miraculous, so it's all good. And even if she did lose the miraculous, you'd probably need to know that the rings are in there to even access them. Really, who knows what else might be stored in that yo-yo by previous users? Whilst at first she's a little bit hesitant, she does agree and powers up, and they're getting ready to hand over the rings. Here is where the episode kind of fakes you out. You know that for the villain plot to have any stakes at all, they need the rings to not be in the yo-yo, so you assume that Yaksi Gozen's going to be seen attacking Paris, and so they have to go and confront her before they can do anything. Instead though, Adrien bursts in with Marinette's parents and presents her with some lamb chops. Finally, Marinette is getting a taste of what it's like to be her friend/boyfriend. Also, this following scene is some of the funniest writing in the history of the show, combining that manic insanity that it's well known for with some absurd dialogue and glorious facial expressions as they all team up to try to explain to Adrien why they're here. To give Marinette some family rings so she can hide them in mashed potatoes for their unborn kids or something like that. I don't know, it's hard to keep up with all the laughing, you know? Adrien finds the rings almost instantly and tries to show off a magic trick he saw online. And this is nice. It plays into that whole finding his interest type of thing that they introduced at the start of the season when he began running. I kind of feel like this episode's a showcase of why Adrien should be his own person and do the things he wants to do, as opposed to doing what he thinks other people want him to do. When he tries too hard to impress Marinette with things she's good at, it's a disaster. But when he does something he actually likes, like magic, he excels. Also, Marinette fully believing that he somehow magically vanished the rings into non-existence, that's very true to form for her. She is a panicker after all. But I did love that they took the two most rational and reasonable characters in the show, Kagami and Felix, and made them so flustered by his arrival at that exact wrong time that they're fully buying into it too. When he returns them, Felix yells at him, prompting Adrien to tell him to calm down, and since Adrien's holding his ring, it completely works. Also, side note, but Felix is still raging at Adrien a fair bit. I think I'm sort of ready for them to maybe explore a bit more of their bond in the way it was described from before Felix went full arsehole in his debut and tried to ruin Adrien's life for no real reason. I think that would probably be rather interesting. Show me that brotherly bond, please. Kagami gets another call and rages at her mum this time as opposed to instantly declining the call. It turns out her mum's been akumatized and just needed confirmation as to where they were, as she instantly cuts open the building, freezes Felix and steals him before walking away. She's also a giant, by the way, so how the hell did a giant in full armor sneak up on them like this? Surely they would have heard her coming. The stomping, cars screeching, people in the streets screaming? No? Ah well. Sometimes plot's gonna plot. Inside Yaksi Gozen, Felix is frozen and ready to be robbed by Lila, who discovers that he doesn't have his control ring, but Kagami's, and so she tells Yaksi Gozen, who begins to fight again to try to get the correct ring. Also, is Felix a short king? Or does Lila have some extreme lifts in those shoes? Good golly, there's a big height difference there. Lila tells Yaksi that Adrien has the ring, and so now he's a target too. He and Kagami can flee downstairs and totally abandon Marinette's parents, who were then confronted by Yaksi Gozen. Whoops! Probably could have told them to hide or something. Kagami goes off on her own to confront her mum wearing Felix's ring, which gets her attention, whilst Adrien and Marinette are given time to transform. Also, Kagami straight up transforms in full view of the city. No hiding, no alleyway, just the middle of the road. Good way to get doxxed if you ask me. What happened to the good old days when heroes went into the disgusting sewers to transform? My god, she has got to have one of the longest transformation sequences of all time, right? It's absurd. Once again, we see how the structure of the episodes have really heavily shifted to de-emphasize the action. We see Kagami using her water power to become giant and grapple with her mum. Ladybug drops a truck on her head and Cat Noir destroys the sword, but there's never really any high stakes. There's no risk. This episode's all about character work and story development, and I do enjoy that they're changing things up in this way. I think it makes for overall more creative episodes, and makes the more action-heavy stuff like Dark Castle feel more special and awesome. Yaksi throws off Kagami and pretends to fall down so that Lila can escape, before she rejects the Akuma as planned and everything's fixed. She reconciles with Kagami, supposedly, and the plan is foiled. Or so we think. They didn't get Felix's ring, but remember, Gabe betrays Tomoe at the start of the episode, and so I think it makes sense for his successor to betray Tomoe at the end of the episode, secretly swapping out Kagami's control ring. So of course it's all going to blow up in Tomoe's face, and surely this would ruin her relationship with Kagami if it all came out. Plus, it gives us the big reveal for later on, and gives Lila an in with the miraculous. It's a good bait and switch type story. After all, she clearly had a fake ring ready for Felix, so maybe she had another one for Kagami just in case. Plus, this would also give her control over Tomoe if she could threaten her with it. Once again, Kagami de-transforms in plain view, and she somehow avoids being found out. She's not even trying with these secret identities today. We then finish off with a really cute scene where they're eating the lamb that Adrien's bought for Marinette's family, and Adrien's all self-conscious about not being able to show how much he loves Marinette. She tells him that he doesn't need to do things her way, and he should just be him, and Tom tells him that he's part of the family. Oh, that's actually probably one of the nicest things anybody said in this damn show. Damn it, Tom, who's cutting onions? The episode that ends with the confirmation that Tomoe's the machine in the kingdom, and with the addition of a new diamond who is very obviously meant to be Lila, right? Good golly, it's heating up now, isn't it? Lots of theorizing to do, I think. But yes, this episode was a smash hit for me. A huge number of key plot developments, massive fuel for theory crafting, and just a whole lot of wholesome vibes. What more could you want? Season 6, you've done it again. Of course though, with all that being said, these have just been my opinions, and now that to hear yours. What did you think of Yaksi Gozen? Did you like it? Hate it? I'm curious for your thoughts, so make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know.